welcome. This is going to be a little personalized for you.
Love it.
I'm Augusta Isley. I'm with Sponsored Projects. I believe we've emailed a few times, but I don't know that I've actually met you. So it's nice to meet you. And my colleague is Brenda Habick.
Hello.
And Brenda's going to get us started.
I am. I'm going to talk about one particular database. It does a lot, and you've heard me talk about it before, is Web of Science.
Yeah.
It is a very useful resource. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can get right in there. Okay, so on the library's homepage, for those of you that are new to this, you can see university libraries right up there, front and center. As we go down the page, a couple of things I'll point out. The ESCA librarian, I'm taking this not only for your own work, but also in working with students, things that you can help them with or direct them to. The ESCA librarian is one of those things that you or your students may find useful. So you can chat with us, you can set up a consultation as well as your students can, especially if you have a research assistant. We're willing and happy to meet with them. So it's a way to get your questions answered. And you can see examples there. Also on the right, what you'll see is more top links. I'll point out the interlibrary loan link. It's a useful one to know for the resources that Ball State doesn't have full text or on the shelves. It does have a new interface. We changed it as soon as spring break. You all came back, it's different. So that's something to keep in mind.
I noticed that, yeah, last week I posted something and you got to change, but you can still figure it out, so it's good.
Yes, your options are across the top rather than in a left column now. That's the big thing. Yeah, but the service itself is the same. So on the databases button, if you will, those of you that haven't ventured here before, these are all the containers of articles that Ball State has subscribed to, and you can slice and dice by subject by using the drop down if that's how you like, or if you know the name, such as Web of Science. We'll go ahead and open that up. And the reason I'm choosing this one, at this level of your game, Web of Science can be pretty helpful in helping with that literature review or sort of putting your project or idea in context of what else is out there. It is not just science that is covered here subject-wise. It is arts and humanities and social sciences as well. Those articles live in here too. It is the highly cited articles, so, journals and articles that live in here. So keep that in mind. It's not a one-stop shop, but it's pretty powerful. And I'll show you something else that if you're trying to find funding, it can be interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and just search all fields for, and I'm going to be very broad here. And there's a reason I am doing it this way. And that is what is on the left. I wanted to be able to show you some of these options and filters. What lives in here can be highly cited papers, and that is just what it is, highly cited. There's an algorithm behind the scenes that's driving that, but also you can slice and dice by the hot papers. Now, the reason I kept it so broad is because the more particular you get, I cannot guarantee that you're going to land on highly cited paper or a hot topic, okay? If you narrow down so far, you may not get your wishes. But this is what is possible in here. And so I like to point this out to faculty for students that are struggling with getting an idea or a topic. They can go in here and do a little browsing and see what some hot papers might be of interest in their bigger discipline, bigger field, as can you. There are review articles too. And these are everything from systematic reviews to literature reviews. It's pretty broad in what they mean by a review article. So that's one thing that I wanted you to know. I am going to go ahead and go back to my search screen here by just clicking in this where I got my results. I'm going to change to all fields again and put in another search term. And I'm putting it in quotes so it sticks it together. Search results. The reason I did that is because I wanted, well, I've got 14 results, and you might say, well, that's not very many. But this database, I'm moving you my little screen of faces over so I can see what I've got here. 14 is not a ton, that is correct. But if you look on the right for each of these records, each of these articles, you'll notice it gives you citations and references here. So those are just the additional citations that live in this database. We're not talking about all those other 323 databases. It's just Web of Science that we're dealing with. So, you know, that can be pretty interesting and pretty important. You can change your results, and this gets buried in this gray bar by time cited. So at a certain point, you probably want to do that if you're looking for that literature that's getting a lot of bang for its buck, if you will. And yeah, now I also want to scroll down because on the left, you get some options to filter. We don't have a huge result list, but you can see some of the filters on the left. And one of them is funding agencies. And I point this out to students, you know, who cares about your project? Who would fund it, right? And so if you put in this database, your bigger, broader topic, higher ed and athletic training, and then you look at the funding agencies of our 14 results, it's going to show you those that are funded articles, funded research. And that can be helpful because if you look at, let's look at the National Athletic Trainers Association. I have to scroll down and refine. So here are my two results. We'll just look at this first one as an example. You've got all your parts and pieces there, your abstract, but down on down, what you'll see are the email addresses. And, you know, my whole thing is reach out to these folks and see if you have questions about the funding, about the process, about the article itself, the research. You've got a contact here, and that's not always typical, I don't think, when you're doing this type of work.
I'm gonna jump in real quick.
Sure,
that would
please.
be a really great way to find a collaborator or a partner too.
Absolutely. And an easy way, right? You can do this in your jammies. So the other thing that is in this database, and if I look at funding text, it's not that much text very often, but I'm always a fan of, oh, look and see, you know, the agency itself might, it depends, I would suspect, on how much text of the funding information will be available for you. On down below, you can see a little bit about the journal information for this particular article. I will suggest that, oh, we've got a chat. Or question. I will suggest too that this database connects with Journal Citation Reports, or JCR. So the impact factors of different journals show up in that database, Journal Citation Reports. It is a standalone database too on that databases list that I brought up at the very beginning. So that's something you can get into as well if you're interested in that. And this particular article, I was scrolling down to see, is not in what's called Current Contents Connect. It is another database from this company that we have under C on our databases page. And it is the table of contents for particular journals. And so if you find funding for a particular article and you scroll down, in journal information, in that box, it would connect you with CCC, Current Contents Connect. And what's nice is you can see what other articles were in that particular journal when this article was published. So there's another connection with the research, not necessarily the researcher, but the research itself. Okay. All right. At the top, under products, there are a few that are useful. Publons. Augusta and I giggle because it's just a strange word. But Publons is a way to keep track of your stuff, your articles, your grants. I can open it up here. Instantly imported from Web of Science, your ORCID or EndNote, and we do have workshops on EndNote. What it does is keeps everything in one place. And once you've registered and you've got yourself all set up in here, you can look and see who at your institution is also in here. And this is a way of making connections and doing work together if it's your field. But this tells you, you can get in here and see who else is signed up. Okay. So this is one way that might be useful for pulling all of that content, all of that work that you've done together, and will help make it easier to create that Vita when it comes time to do that. So, yeah. Questions so far?
I was going to touch on this later, but since we're talking about it now, the in just recently released is from NSF and NIH, so that's National Science Foundation and National Institutes of Health, which tend to lead the innovation on grants and like guidelines and things. A few years ago, they transitioned to using Science CV, which I will show you later, but they and it's been an optional piece of software. It's free out in the cloud, but what it does is it gives you a place to have all of your biosketch information in one location that you can continue to reference, and it integrates with that your ORCID. And since Publons integrates with ORCID, if you just want a CV or a biosketch in any particular format, you can just pop that information into Science CV and then hit export in the format that you want, and it's all there. So no more trying to figure out which form is actually the current version this time of year. And so that is, it is multiple systems, but if you have that ORCID, here is a place in Publons to find some collaborators, and also have your grant materials, grant proposal materials auto-populate for you. But all of that to say, NSF and NIH are going to require use of Science CV soon. And so I assume other funders will probably follow suit in the coming years. The end.
So another reason to come to Web of Science. Okay, so here we are back at our initial list of results for just higher education without athletic training. I did want to touch briefly on the multi-link because that is an indication that you may have to use interlibrary loan. I had mentioned that at the beginning. So how do you know? Well, you won't know until you click on it. And what it does is it goes behind the scenes to see if our other databases have this article full text. And if so, there'll be a link in this section of the record that says how to get it. There'll be a link there. In this case, it's not happening. So here's the option to interlibrary loan. If you haven't used this before, you just put the screen that comes up is your contact information. Set it up, you're good to go. And then any articles that you request take about 3 to 5 business days to come, and they come as a PDF into your account, and you'll get an email telling you that they're available now for you. Do something with them. Don't leave them there while you're doing your funding and grants and all of this stuff, because in 30 days they go away and you have to reorder. And that's for copyright reasons. So you want to get them out of that account. The same for your students. Make sure that also on this note, as faculty members, if you're having students do articles, collecting articles for you, requesting them, please, please, please get set up with us here in the building as a proxy, that they're your proxy, because we don't want them using their account for that, for copyright for you. Okay. Any questions? Okay, I
have one question.
Yes.
I have a question. Can
Yes.
you talk a little bit about impact scores and what those are?
I can. Journal impact, you just want me to go there? Journal impact factors are, it's a formula that determines the impact of a journal within the field. And the better the impact factor, the more gold standard it becomes in the field, if you will. So yes, I can send you a link to a lot of information. It is one measurement. There is also some debate about the H factor, H index, which is a different mathematical equation that weighs citations and publications and that kind of thing. So it's just one measurement of the importance of a journal in a field or a discipline. Yeah, and they're expensive journals. Just as a side note, they're expensive.
The higher the impact, the higher the price.
Yeah, well, maybe, perhaps, but they're also the ones that faculty like to publish in if they can, and why not, right? But also keep in mind, when we're in Web of Science and we're looking at those articles and we're seeing what's being cited, we don't know from just that initial look why something is being cited. So it could be cited because the research was poorly done and other folks are calling that out, or they could be saying, hey, this is really an innovative approach to this topic. So you need to pay attention to it either way, right? You got to know the good with the bad. So yeah. Any other questions?
Thanks for that. Yeah, I think I'm using a Web of Science myself. I'm actually setting some alerts. So every week I got the kind of the updates.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a great. I love Web of Science too.
Now, are you set up for journal alerts or article citation alerts?
Article citation.
Okay. Good.
Thanks for the funding. I didn't know about the funding though, so I'm glad good to know that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice little piece that's hidden way at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it's all you.
Okay. So I am going to talk about a few things. I could bore you with the talk about what is a sponsored project, but I feel like the two here know about what sponsored projects are. So I will jump more to the resources that we have available on campus, both for finding funding and then developing your application. So I'm going to share my screen, share that for now. Okay. And I still want to see you. Okay. So this is our website. It's bsu.edu/SPA. And we have a number of resources growing every day for how to find funding, how to develop your proposal. As I say in sponsored projects, oh, yeah, I'm a senior proposal manager with Sponsored Project Administration. And so we do everything from the finding funding all the way up to and including the submission of the application. And so we don't write grants, but we do try to offer all of the resources that we can to help faculty, students, and sometimes staff develop their grant proposals. And so from here, we have this nice button that says Find Funding. And we have 2 tabs here, and they're mostly the same, but like students probably wouldn't be interested in federal opportunities necessarily, but faculty would be. So we have this that says Opportunity Websites that directs you to Indiana State procurement. So that's contracts with the state, grants.gov, which is the federal clearinghouse of all, well, like 95% of all federal agencies post their grant opportunities to grants.gov. Candid.org used to be the Foundation Center. And so that has a lot, well, it used to be GuideStar and Foundation Center, and then Candid bought both of those and mooshed them together. So they are, it contains tons of resources for specifically nonprofits, but it also posts RFPs for, you know, like smaller nonprofit agencies that are, or foundations that are offering funding. And they have like newsletters and all kinds of stuff. So lots of resources at candid.org. Some of them are behind a paywall, but for the most part, there's just so much that's free on the Candid website. I encourage everyone to go check it out. SAM.gov is just that's really more of a SPA thing. That's how we register to actually be able to do business with the government. And then the Federal Register is published daily for all of the things that are coming out of the federal government. So that could be a lot of things, but sometimes grants are posted, well, grants are always posted to the Federal Register. Sometimes they're only posted to the Federal Register. So that's a thing, a resource that we have linked. I can't tell you that it would be terribly interesting for anybody to read. The SPIN database is our main funding opportunity database. And so it functions just like all of the other databases you've probably ever looked at. And if we go in here, we want to use our institutional credentials and just do Ball State University. And I'm gonna sign in. It does do single sign-on. And let me in, okay. And so this has a number of resources and things. You can save searches for yourself. I actually, as an administrator of the system, I can share saved searches for other people, or do a search and then share it to a particular user, which is kind of cool, especially if you know, one of our faculty members or even a student is having trouble searching. We can sort of collaborate on that search to make it more, to get more opportunities of the things that we're actually trying to get at. You can do funding alerts. And so that is, if you have a topic or you have a search, you can set up funding alerts. So if there's anything new that comes through on the search during the week or the month, I think it's a weekly alert, it will just email you any updates. And so again, like those citations, it's really good to get the information coming to you, so you aren't having to go out and do these searches all the time, because it's a lot of information to dig through. And so having it come to you is the better option. You can also bookmark particular opportunities. And so if you find one that's really, you've read the summary and you've visited the sponsor website and you're like, this, I really want to keep this on my radar, but like the deadline just passed or the deadline is coming up and you know that you're not going to make it, you can bookmark it and come back to it later. And then there are a number of ways to search and a number of delimiters to adjust your search. The text search is just open text. The keyword search is keywords, it's database. All of the opportunities are tagged with keywords, and you basically just search by those keywords instead of an open text. And then the advanced search is like all of the above. And so that's the one where you get all of the delimiters of eligibility, location, if you want like specifically a federal or nonprofit sponsor, how much. If you're looking for something over a certain threshold, you can add that there. So I won't bore you with how to search. I feel like most people these days understand how the search function works. But then there are all of these other resources down below that the SPIN system has actually curated. Well, the people behind SPIN have curated. And so COVID-19, coronavirus, all resources, that's like any resource that would have to do with COVID. And so I think it links to maybe data sources, data sets, things like that. The funding opportunities is just funding opportunities, probably mostly in like social behavioral and medical research type things. But I'm sure there's others. New and modified opportunities. So those would be things that were modified within the last 7 days. Impending deadlines, those are deadlines within the next 2 weeks, so 14 days. Limited submission only means that a sponsor has a limit on the number of applications that can come from any one institution. Fed Biz Ops is federal contracts, Federal Register Guide. It will actually pull any new opportunities from Federal Register. So the boring like whole Federal Register thing that we link to on our website here is just the stuff that is federal or grants. And so that actually came in handy one year or last year when there was a very late posting of a deadline that got moved, and they only published it in the Federal Register. And it was like, we'll give you an extra like 3 weeks to submit this, which never happens, and that was crazy. But I actually like learned about it here. And then non-traditional sources just covers like crowdfunding. So if Ball State has the crowdfunding platform that like internally, but there are a lot of scientists and researchers and creative projects that maybe don't fit with a lot of traditional funding mechanisms. And so they have curated here some specific to scholarly activity crowdfunding sites. So lots of opportunities to try on new thinking outside of the box, trying on new sources of funding. So questions about SPIN before I move on. And all Ball State, if you have a Ball State username and password, you can access this. So, definitely tell your students and share with your colleagues. On our website, we actually have, this was recorded a couple years ago, but it is a walkthrough of, it's just Zoom specific or SPIN specific with SPIN. Or, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It's Friday, sorry guys. Okay. And then we have internal opportunities. Aspire internal grants, I feel like most people are familiar with this, but we do have faculty and student opportunities for internal grants, both creative and research opportunities, different levels of funding depending on what you want to do. For faculty, there's an international travel, a travel to visit program officers, and some publications assistance, which is very popular. And then for students, there are opportunities for travel to conferences. And of course, that's been hard in the last couple of years, but you know, as the university is moving toward allowing more travel where it is safe, you just have to follow university policy, that's all. Teacher Scholar Program, I don't honestly know much about it, other than it's a program that encourages undergraduate research by matching an undergraduate who hasn't had a chance to do a research opportunity with a mentor, a faculty mentor. And then Tucker and Digital Scholarship Lab, I actually don't know if they're even a thing anymore, so maybe just ignore those. For your students, there are a lot of the same opportunities or information there. Definitely tell your students to, check out our website. And I will also tell them to check out our website next week. For our proposal development, so great, you have your funding opportunity, and what are these guidelines telling me I need to do, and what do I need to put together? What do I need to bring together to be able to actually put a grant proposal together? So we have an FAQ and major components. This is not comprehensive by any means, but it definitely, if you've never written a grant before, or maybe you have and you either weren't successful or it was like a mind-boggling experience, these are kind of the major sections of an application, and certainly a federal application that you would need to put together. So the narrative is just the meat of your application. Grant writing is a very interesting and its own unique brand of persuasive writing. Obviously, the whole point is that they have money and you want money. How do you make that happen? And so the narrative is where you do that. Your budget is where you tell them what you want. And I'm always asked, like, is it better to like under budget, or like maybe I need to inflate my budget? And do neither of those things. It's important that you ask for what you need and make sure that your budget matches with your narrative. So if in your narrative you talk about how you're gonna hire a bunch of undergraduate students and then you don't include wages in your budget, that is confusing. And why are you asking for all of these students if you're not going to pay them? So just make sure that it makes sense and they sort of like jive with each other. Your bio sketches, that piece that I told you about, or that we talked about before, it is just another term for a resume or a CV. It's just formatted differently depending on the agency that you are applying to. And as I said, Science CV is a very handy tool. It is free. And if you go, it's very much, I think it's hooked up to the NIH My NCBI, that like it pulls your publications. And so if you just enter your information, there is a bit of a setup. We have some instructions on how to on the website, but like once you get it set up, and I would imagine, it would integrate somehow a little bit with that Publon software, so that you would only have to do it in one place, and then you can kind of make it flow from there. Definitely, if you haven't gone out and registered for your ORCID, I would do that too, and because they all eventually talk to each other, and that will just make it easier. And once you do it, you only have to do it that once, and it'll stay up to date. So yeah, like I said, we have some information here on how to do that. Your current and pending support is just like if you're applying to the NSF, they want to know how else you are funded. And we don't want duplicative funding, so it's really important that you you state, there's no duplicative funding. You're not over committing yourself for a current project by, you already have 40 summer days on this other project. You can't then turn around and ask for 40 for the same summer on a different project. And so that's what that current and pending support is. I will add that with the university's adjustments or things about the conflict of interest, conflict of commitment policy, we have been asked to run current and pending by the Office of Research Integrity before we submit, which adds, time to that whole developing your grant proposal process, just to make sure that the current and pending captures all of the actual commitments that a faculty member has. And we have some examples of what a current and pending would look like. Data management is increasingly a big deal, and data management, data sharing, a lot of the federal, obviously tax dollars, public work, they want you to share your outcomes and that dissemination, but also like there's data management. If you're doing research with health information or personally identifiable information, or students, like you have to manage that data. And here is a place, here's some information about how to set up that. DMP tool is a really helpful service that actually walks you through it, asks you the questions, like these are the things that you should be considering when you're developing your data management plan. And moreover, our IT can actually help you develop that and help you create that robust data management plan. And then broader impacts. This is specifically a National Science Foundation request. However, more grantors are asking that question, like what ripple effects will your work have? How is it impacting, your community, the state's community, the regional community, the country? How is it impacting the science, the academic community? And so there's some information here about considerations that may help you add that broader impact statement to your narrative, because ultimately your narrative is something that should tell a funder, like, this is so great and look at all of the impact it's going to have. And then we have a bunch of frequently asked questions, and some of them are on budgets, some of them are on just general, like what is FNA, what is indirect costs? And I do apologize, these questions are not in any particular order, so they're just sort of like randomly up there. So it jumps around from topic to topic, and hopefully we'll be able to fix that soon. So questions about the components. Or
well organized, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I will add that SPIN is also in the university libraries databases, so that's a place where you can find it. And I would also add that Google is also a good resource. Like, I know that sounds very silly, but carefully crafted Google search can really find you a lot of good information. There are increasingly over the years, more information has been posted to sponsor websites. So if you find a sponsor that you are interested in, maybe you were looking at the Web of Science and you see a funder and you go to their website, they will have typically a funding database that tells you who they've funded, and you can then get a sense of what types of things they're interested in. And if it's sort of like, yeah, I'm agreeing, I'm seeing things that really go with what my work is, you know, at that point you could reach out to a sponsor and say, hey, here's my work, are you interested? And that's a way to make some connections, or alternatively, weed out the things that are not going to be helpful for your work. Grant writing is not, I will stop sharing my screen now. Grant writing is not easy, and it is time consuming. And so if you can help yourself, you know, either make the connection or be like, okay, I don't need to worry about that one anymore. That is a time save both for you and for them, because that means they don't have to read your narrative and be like, I don't want to fund this. So think about those sort of outside the box ways to find your connections with funders. Questions? We will also take questions about just sort of the process or other resources.
Yeah, I received the spin. So I think before that was another system, but then you changed to spin like a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago. But every week I receive specific funding opportunities, and it's very useful. Yeah.
Yeah, we switched from Pivot to Spin,
Pivot,
and Spin doesn't have as many bells and whistles as Pivot did, but it has, like I said, the funding alerts and the saved searches that you can set up to get the information to come to you.
Yeah.
Or if you want to reach out to your proposal manager, they can help you set up a search and then share it with you, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Augusta, is the link to knowing who your person is still on your website?
Yes, it is on the front page of our website, right next to finding funding. It says find funding and then find your grant manager.
That can be helpful for your students too, to direct them.
I have a question for you, Brenda.
Yes.
You mentioned the Web of Science was mostly for highly cited journals. So actually, this is my go-to kind of for me databases is Web of Science. Sometimes I go to Google Scholar a bit, but specifically for, I guess, sports sciences, I mean, sport and exercise psychology, any specific databases you would recommend for my specific field?
Yes. Web of Science. We like to say that it's those gold standard journals that live in there. But I would also recommend Sport Discus.
Yeah.
With full text.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend APA PsycInfo. A lot of your literature is in there if you're going to be dealing with psychology. Mm-hmm. And the little sibling to APA PsycInfo is PsycArticles, APA PsycArticles. And you have to basically search them separately. And then we have one for physical education, and I don't know if that would be of interest. I don't know if that would work for you or not. We can take a quick peek at it, maybe. No, I closed my screen. Yeah, but it's a physical education. I don't know. Thoughts on that? Maybe, maybe not.
It could be, yeah. I mean, exercise psychology is also looking at how we can better also get the kids active, you know, in the long term. So that's absolutely, yeah.
Physical Education Index is what it's called.
Okay.
And it is an index.
Cool.
She wrinkles her nose. You might also, are you looking at K-12 at all? Or are you college and university focused?
For my research, I mean?
Yes.
I'm looking at all the population, so K-12 too.
Okay. For K-12, Eric EBSCOhost is the education database.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and if you're looking at communities, and I like to think of even communities that are not necessarily in the US, sociological abstracts is really interesting. Sometimes what you find in there.
Okay.
Because it's that sociological aspect that You're like, oh, yes, wellness programs are important to everyone, you know, that kind of approach.
Yeah. Do you know why we can't find like a single databases for all the journals and everything?
You create that, we would be so in debt to you, and you could call any price you want. Yeah.
Is it like the journals actually having some contracts with databases? Yeah. Or...
Yes. Publishers sell bundles and packages and come up with their own databases and create their own databases, like EBSCOhost. You know, it has several, and then it starts slicing and dicing off, you know, business, media, you know, all these packages, and they can make a lot of money doing that. It's not a one size fits all. If you want that, I think the nearest thing to that is the Google.
Yeah. Although sometimes I use it, yeah, too.
But you know, Google Scholar can be helpful, especially if you make sure that link to Ball State is marked.
Yeah, I do that too, yeah.
So you're going to get what's in our databases if it's in Google Scholar. The thing is, I don't know how many faculty are doing research and putting it in Google Scholar. I mean, I don't know how much weight that carries in P&T decisions.
Yeah, I think it's more in terms of whether it's can peer reviewed or not peer reviewed research.
Right.
Good thing. So I think Google is making its own search based on your interest, and I receive that on my personal email sometimes, some alerts from Google Scholar about, oh yeah, this author you're following just published that.
Well, Google Scholar is really good for those projects that are sort of new-ish, or you want to get feedback from your community quickly. I mean, you know, that's, and in your field that can be beneficial because you don't want a year or two of a research project and then you discover I really went the wrong direction. So getting that out there and getting some feedback and then doing the study is not uncommon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a fan of Google Scholar when it's used appropriately.
Yeah.
I will add to that from the a similar thing that you could do in terms of grants is if you find a funder, you know, especially federal, that you are interested in perhaps applying to, they always need peer reviewers for the grants panels. And there are tons of opportunities to serve as a grant panelist. And I have heard nothing but, you know, oh my gosh, this was so beneficial because I learned what the review process is like. I learned what other people are doing. And you know, and then you make collaborators and you make partnerships and you learn what the funder needs, does, wants, and you've made that connection to be helpful for them. So that's just a way for you to be known in that circle.
That's a good point, yeah.
And we have some links to that also on our website for like just agencies, and here's the link to the page that asks for peer reviewers.
Okay, great.
Well, if you have questions, you know who we are and where we are. So
yeah,
I know you now.
Yes.
You're real.
We are real. And we're everywhere. We're like the wind.
that's right.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, it was really helpful.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Have a
Have a
good
nice
weekend.
weekend.
Yeah, you
Bye-bye.
too. Take care.